True story. I never had my parents or my friends read any of my ghostwritten or pseudonym books. But when I finally published a book under my own name, there were some mixed opinions and mixed results amongst my friends and family. My dad made sure to read it right away. And of course, he was trying to decipher, which character was who. And then he was telling me that some of the settings weren't accurately representing their house. And I was like, it's fiction, dude. It's fiction. I, am not the main character. You're not the main character's dead father. And our family house isn't this house. My mother, on the other hand, made a point of telling me for months that she would read it when she had time, but she was just so busy. And of course, she never read it, which is absolutely 100% fine. She did spend a lot of time raving about another book of someone who's not related to her, but is related to me. And for those 6 months where she was not reading my book, she was busy raving about that one. But again, that's absolutely fine. My brother and my sister-in-law did not read my book. My brother's not a reader, so that's fine. My sister-in-law is a reader, and probably there were other reasons that she didn't read it, and that's fine. My niece and nephew evenly split. My niece read it and loved it, and my nephew, not quite sure. And that's fine. When I say it's fine, I'm not being glib. It is better than fine. Some people in your friends or family, you would prefer they not read your book. And that's not me being a bratty teenager saying, I don't care, I don't care. You know who else didn't read my book? The majority of my friends, my own children, my husband. And honestly, I like it that way. These people who are my friends, my family, they are all delightful, but you know what? They are not my audience. One of the first mindset things that I deal with when I get a new writer on board is that I have to get these new writers over the idea that their friends and family somehow owe them attention and support. This is one of the thoughts that holds back so many writers in so many ways. It's a real limiting belief that your friends and family need to be supporting you as a writer. So today on the podcast, I thought it would be really crucial for me to discuss this important issue. So today on the How to Be an Author podcast, we're going to be talking about how it manifests the fact that your friends and family don't want to read your book, what they say, what it really means. We're going to talk about why it happens, why they're not your audience. And not only that, why they're being sometimes dismissive of you. So we're going to make you feel a little bit better about that. We're going to talk about the negative effects of thinking too hard about what your friends and family think of your writing. And finally, we'll discuss why it's a good thing that your friends and family are not your target audience and what to do about it. If you're a writer dreaming of becoming a successful author, join me, writing coach Karenna Akavane, on the How to Be an Author podcast, your weekly source for writing information, inspiration, and motivation. Okay, so let's think of the worst stereotypes that people have of writers in general. Come on, you've heard them all. People think that writers are sitting in cafes whining about their plot and their muse. They're sitting there dreaming, doing nothing. They're not even doing a real job. They're a little narcissistic. They're never going to make any money unless they're one of those rare best-selling authors. And if they're one of those, they probably kind of either plagiarized, cheated the system, or did something that was a little bit unseemly to get there. And this whole time that writers are doing all of this, the rest of the world is working, many of them at things that are not creative and fun. Yeah, that's probably exactly what many of your non-writing friends and family are thinking about writers. They're thinking that we are pretentious attention seekers. And I swear I'm not being negative. I'm being a little bit jokey, but also a little bit realistic. And you know what else? You're not going to be able to sway that opinion in your friends and family or anybody else who believes that. Changing their mind on that is going to be a waste of your energy. You cannot change people's minds when they have such an established thought in them. So you might as well face the reality right away. Your friends and family are not your audience. So let's talk about kind of proof of this and how it manifests itself. The fact that your friends and family are not your ideal reader, they're not your audience, they're not the people you should be marketing your book to or expecting to support your writing career. So here's some of the different little things that they say to let you know that your book is not for them. One of the things they'll do is they'll say, I would totally write a book too if only I had the time. Now, this is one of the more interesting things that people say because you feel that they're just being insulting. They're just saying that, they're super busy doing super important things, whereas you're a big time waster who can afford to sit there and dream and do nothing. Well, I think there's a little bit more to it than that. These people can be very negative about your work because maybe they desperately want to write or put themselves out there or do something creative, but they just cannot give themselves permission to put in the time or to make it a priority. And I think there's a certain amount of frustration there because of that. So that's really something that you should be sensitive to, is the fact that many people are going to feel triggered by the fact that you're actually doing this thing that they might have been dreaming of in the back of their head, and they're not giving themselves permission. Another thing friends and family will say, they'll say, but how do you expect to make a living? There's a little bit of the previous thing in this where they're like, wow, I hope they don't manage to make a living doing this thing because I've not given myself permission to do it myself. You making a living from living your dream would be a slap in the face to them. But the other part of this is that some of our friends and family get a little bit scared that we are planning on relying on them, maybe financially, that we're going to ask them for financial help or we're going to ask them to buy something. And they don't want that to happen, not because they're greedy or ungenerous, but truly, it's not realistic for you to keep depending on friends and family for your livelihood or depending on them to spot you some money or lend you something or help you with rent because you decided to do this thing that you knew you weren't going to be making money from it immediately. That's the other realistic thing. You have to be realistic about the fact that, yes, some writers make an excellent living. Some writers find a way to balance writing and making a great income doing something else. And some writers are always on the brink of poverty. This is a choice, but it's not a choice that you should be saddling your family and your friends with. Another thing that people will say is something like, is your book something I would have heard of? Again, this is them trying to control the situation because they're feeling bad that you're in a realm that they're not familiar with. You're in a realm now that they feel is a little bit foreign to them. So this is their way of bringing this back to themselves, giving themselves the power back of, okay, well, if I haven't heard of them or haven't heard of their book, then I still have control of the situation. I still have this little moral superiority over it. And that's not super cool, I know, but it does make sense when you think about it. Other people will say, my friend's a successful author. You should read their stuff to see how it's done. This is a really painful one for many of us, but many times, there's that thing where something needs to be approved of before other people will get on board. Think of the whole idea of social proof. So if your friend or family member has another friend who's probably not as good a friend, to tell you the truth, but they have this honor that comes from knowing them because they're kind of successful and other people that they like and respect know their work, so it's okay to like that person's work. And that person isn't as close to them as you are. So you should just be flattered that they feel closer to you, so much so that they think, wow, if I'm this close to them, then they can't be that cool because I'm not that cool. So think about it. This is a self-esteem thing for your friend or your family member. It's not so much an insult of you. Sometimes you'll hear your friends or family members say, no, I'm not going to read your book. I don't really read, or I don't have time to read, or I don't read that genre. Guess what? That's fair, right? You don't read everything that's out there in the world. There's some things that you don't have time to read or that you don't care to read or that you don't like to read, and you're not going to read them. Your friends and family don't need to force themselves to put in hours of their time doing something that they're not going to enjoy just because it's you. So this is something where we have to kindly get over ourselves in this regard. You've got some friends who are a little bit sabotagey. Now, these are a little bit difficult. They are the Debbie Downers who are going to tell you like, oh, wow, yeah, you got an agent. Who are they? Well, I think I heard that they were a scammer. Or, oh, which company is publishing your book? Yeah, aren't they tiny? Like, are they going bankrupt? Or maybe you have a deadline or an event and they're going to sabotage that by saying like, no, please, you have to come out with me. Let's go have a drink. Or they're going to do something else like, wow, I really need a ride to the airport. I can't believe you're not taking me. Or they're going to send you links to articles full of negative stuff. Like, I just read that, every author on earth gets carpal tunnel syndrome. That's horrible. Or like, aren't you concerned about your eyes? They must be going bad with all this writing thing. Or, oh gosh, I read that the publishing industry is dead. A lot of this stuff is happening because of insecurity, competitiveness, or even fear. Sometimes they're afraid for you. They want you to succeed, but sometimes they secretly don't want you to succeed that much because it kind of reflects on them in many ways. So we're going to talk a little bit more about, why your friends and family are not your audience. And even worse, sometimes they're not supportive at all, or they're beyond not supportive. They're dismissive. So you first have to know that you are not alone. I would have to say that the majority of writers mention some degree of this happening to them. And of course, for every, 10 of those, there's going to be one who's like, no, my friends and family are so super supportive. Those are also the people whose friends and family just gloss over their stuff and say, oh yeah, it's great, I loved it. And these writers are so happy to hear that they don't want to dig deeper and see whether that's true. So I would take that with a grain of salt, but also consider that your friends and family have known you for a while now, and they've known you under a certain guise. You are their friend. You are their child. You are that person that they went to detention with. You are that person who got pulled over because you were driving too fast. You're that person who totally, scammed something or shoplifted or did something like that. They can't see you as an author. They have to see you with all your faults and everything else that they know. They want to be able to define you and to put you in that convenient category that they've had for you. And it's too uncomfortable for them to see you as this serious, big public thing, which is an author. Many of our friends and family do have this genuine desire, seriously, to protect us. They've heard that writing is tough. It's a dangerous path where you're not going to make a lot of money, and they really want to save you from the pain. So you're thinking, oh my God, they're trying to hold me back, whereas they're thinking, I'm trying to protect them. So consider that. Other people are going to be afraid that they're going to hate your work and they don't want to hurt your feelings. These are the same people who are like, oh yeah, I loved it. It's great. They didn't really read it. They're afraid you're going to dig even further. So some people will go so far as to not read it at all because they don't want to lie. They're afraid of being put on the spot. So they're thinking to themselves, I'm better off just preemptively telling them, no, I don't read this kind of stuff. And they think that that's more fair and that that's less painful, and you might feel a different way. Many people just don't understand what it's like to be a writer who's putting themselves out there, and they don't even understand why you would want to do that. So it's threatening for them. They're like, wow, they're doing this whole thing that I don't get. How does that speak about our relationship? What does that say about us? We're on a different page now. They're afraid now that you're going to be growing apart. And if you fail, they're afraid that that's going to rub off on them and make them look bad. And if you're going to succeed, they're going to be worried about that, because how does that change your relationship? If you become well known for your writing, that's going to be terrible for them. Some friends and family are truly threatened by the idea that they might see themselves in your writing, either as a fictional character or as a direct portrayal in a memoir, even worse. And maybe even worse, they're afraid of seeing you in your writing. It's really uncomfortable for them to see you kind of burying your soul in front of them. It's like walking into the bathroom and, seeing you taking a poo. It's kind of mortifying. They want to keep your relationship on this comfortable, easy level where they don't have to know all these things about you. And they don't want to have to judge you. And even worse, they don't want to get into a fight with you because they're going to be accusing you of lying or being inaccurate, or they're going to see that you have certain views or opinions that they just can't reconcile with their relationship with you. Also, sometimes they think that your writing is going to take time away from them, time that you could be, doing fun stuff with them. And they don't consider that this is your job. This is what you're doing. They're thinking that, okay, my job is 9 to 5. Why are they working on this writing stuff at all these times when I could be doing fun stuff with them? That's where people who you're in a more close and serious relationship with are going to start to feel really defensive when you start writing. And then, of course, you've got the drama queens, the emotional vampires, the control freaks who really cannot stand for the focus to be on anything but them. And they really see you paying all this attention to the book. And they're like, oh my God, this means that I'm losing this attention. And it's truly horrifying for them. Listen, all of these things, these opinions that people have and these, negative effects. You're thinking about, oh my God, I feel so bad that I'm not being supported by my friends and family. But let me tell you, there are actually really negative effects to thinking too hard about what your friends and family think about your writing. Their support is not all positive. Believe me when I say that their opinions can definitely hold you back. They can absolutely keep you from being your most authentic self. I truly think that if you're writing certain things, you really feel that you need to put yourself out there. And it's hard to do that when you think about your parents or your friends reading your book. I have several clients who've talked about really wanting to write romance, but they're like, oh my God, I can't bear the thought of my dad reading this. To which I say, okay, honestly, unless you're uber confident about your dad and everybody else reading it, why don't you set things up so that your dad never has to read it? Like, don't tell him about it. Use a pen name. And if you're uncomfortable with your friends knowing that you're writing this stuff, same thing there. It's really easy. If you never tell your friends and family about what you're writing and what you're doing, chances are pretty high that they're not going to be surfing the web looking for some book that you may or may not have written. So let's talk about more reasons why it's a really good thing that some friends and family do not support your writing. It's really important to look at this in a completely realistic and positive light. So the first thing is that many times when you're writing and you see these people being mean to you, they are toxic people. This happened to me. I had somebody who came out of the woodwork after I'd written and published the first fiction book under my name. He didn't care so much about the nonfiction book that I wrote because I guess that didn't trigger him or that didn't make him feel less than. I'm guessing that he thought that maybe he's a creative person. So when I came out with my fiction book, he came out of the woodwork and he called me and he started saying things like, oh, you keep promoting your book. It's all I ever see. And, you should really have me read it so that I can tell you what I think, because all of your friends and everybody else who's read it are sycophants and they're not telling you the truth. And I'm going to tell you the truth about your book. So why don't you send me a free copy and I can tell you all about that? Okay, there's so many things wrong with this. It's not surprising. And some people who aren't toxic idiots might feel tempted to say something like that, not quite as infuriatingly, pathetically, but this is not a really unique thing that people say to writers. But what this helped me to do was that since he'd been so alienated by my book, I was able to then actively alienate him further. It was so much easier for me to say, yeah, I guess you're feeling threatened because you never went to school and maybe you wanted to write a book and you have nothing to do with publishing or books. In fact, you don't read. Doing that enabled me to alienate him in return. And that made my life a lot more tranquil. I could stop worrying about that particular opinion and that particular person trying to impact my energy, because in order to keep writing, you need to protect your energy. That's really, really important. This is something that I want to say where developing a tough skin is pretty much a job requirement for writers. But here's the thing. You need a tough skin to put up with things like bad critiques or rejections from agents or poor book sales, all of these sorts of things. And of course, the things that our friends and family say. But you also want to preserve your delicate interior. Your delicate interior being that sensitive side to you, those emotions, that, kind of a little bit dramatic side that makes you sensitive enough to write. It really takes self-preservation. And one of the great ways to do that is to realize that you don't need to tell everyone everything. You don't need to share everything with everyone. You've got different friends and different relationships that fulfill different purposes. So, what about you actually make a game out of not telling your family what you're doing or what you're writing? How about you make it fun where you're like, I'm going to try to go through a whole meal without telling Uncle Bob about anything I'm writing, or even the fact that I'm a writer. I'm going to talk about everything else. In fact, I'll talk about his job. Interesting, right? How often do you talk with your friends and family about what they're doing? So you find your uncle's job boring because he's an accountant, or you find, your brother's job bad because he works for a politician that's from a different political party from yours, or you find your mom's stuff boring because she's gardening and you don't care about gardening. Why should they care more about what you're doing when you're not being that supportive about what they're doing? Even if you're listening to them talking about their latest project or their latest report that they had to do, think about how much enthusiasm you're doing that with, and realize that if you're a professional writer, you can definitely set up boundaries, be professional, and use dinner parties to talk about chit chat, talk about small talk about the news or hobbies, anything else. I think it's really important to be objective and to see how you're actually expecting people to do things that you don't do for them. I would keep to talking about writing with people who enjoy either writing or reading, people that you have something in common with, people who are going to be fascinated about your subject. This is where we're really coming into who your audience is. You cannot force people to be supportive because, believe me, it will push them away. And no, this does not mean they're terrible people. They cannot be forced to support you if it is not one of their priorities or one of their interests. Even if they love you, you're really pushing it too far. And another thing in which many of us push people too far is when we expect friends and family to support us financially. We should not expect them to. And you're thinking, wait, no, I'm independent. I just asked them to buy this book, blah, blah, blah. That's asking for their financial support. It really is. And when you do that, and you can ask, of course, you can put it out there. And some friends and family will surprise you by buying 10 copies for their friends. And that's wonderful. You should be super thankful about that, but it is not an obligation at all. So remember, they do not need to support you financially. And any little shadow of that where you start to act in a way that you're looking like you expect them to do that, that is going to push them away. So when you notice that you're promoting your book on your personal Facebook account, for example, or on your personal Instagram, all of that is super fair. That's something that we all do to get the news out there. But just keep in mind that many people will not engage. I notice that I'll put up a picture of one of my kids, or I'll put up a picture of myself or my dog or a landscape, and I'll get all these likes and all these comments. And then I put up a picture of me with my book, or just my book, or something really important that's related to writing, and I'll get almost zero engagement. That's not because my friends and family are assholes. It's because that is not something that resonates with them, or it makes them feel a certain way, so they're not going to engage with it. And the funny thing is, many of them have seen it. They see what I'm putting up, but they can't bring themselves to like it. So you can't force those people to do that. And then they're the same people who are going to support all the time. They're going to be liking everything. And that's really important to realize who those people are and be thankful for them. But it's not crucial for everyone to do that. So lose your security blanket. Fly with those wings of yours. Do not expect friends and family to carry you more than they're able to, willing to, or wanting to. It's unfair to do that. When you stop thinking of friends and family as your security blanket or as your little financial mini cash cow, and by the way, they're going to expect the friends and family discount, but when you stop holding on to that, that's when you're going to start to learn to market yourself and advertise in other ways where you're going to start to find your actual audience, your actual reader. So definitely use this as a learning opportunity. Use this to see what kind of readers are your reader. And remember that you can still pick and choose amongst your friends and family for beta reading, because that's something that's fair enough. Anybody who's willing to read, utilize that, but be thankful for it. Set up realistic expectations and realize that when you stop really putting all that attention and all those expectations on friends and family, that's when you can start to be freed up to figure out who your audience is. Yeah, who's your audience? That is a great question that I think it's really important to answer. And that's why we're going to devote a whole episode of the How to Be an Author podcast to that very same question. Next week, we're going to be talking about who is your audience, how to find them, and how to reach them. Very crucial question for writers, no matter what kind of writing you're doing. So I hope this episode helped your mindset and that it helped you to see some truths that I think might have been holding you back in a lot of ways. I know that when I realized this truth, it made me feel so much better. It really freed me up. It really made me realize that I am independent. I can write whatever I want, and I have to turn to strangers who might become raving fans to read my work, and not to family and friends who are there for emotional support and fun and comfort in a lot of other ways. I'll see you next week when we talk about how to find your audience. If you have any pressing writing-related questions or would like to be featured on the How to Be an Author podcast, please feel free to reach out on my website, creativeandwritingcoach.com.